Welcome to the 18th episode of Life Epistles. Today, we bring to you the part 3 of the topic, Death, what happens before, during, and after. In today's episode, we will be talking about purging the dead in purgatory. And what are some of the questions we seek to answer? 1. What should be done in the 3.5 days immediately after death so as not to disturb the dead? 2. Do dead people attend their own funeral? 3. How are the dead purged in purgatory? 4. What is purgatory? 5. Why should there be purgatory? 6. Will every human being go through purgatory? And 7. What happens after purgatory? Stay with us as we provide the answers. Our source of information is the Western Wisdom Teachings, and my name is Sedo Boko. We wish to advise that there are some descriptions in the presentation which might touch on your sensibilities. Please bear with us. Let us begin with a summary of lecture number 17. What did we say in our previous lecture? We said that there is natural death and unnatural death. Both influence how a person dies and life after death. The first 3.5 days after clinical death are the most important periods for the dead because the life records in the seed atom are being transferred into the desired body. As such, there should be no noise or disturbance around the place of the dead. Burial immediately after a person dies deprives the dead from a successful review of his or her life on earth or the transfer of life records into the desired body. Neither should there be embalming or cremation in the 3.5 days. Otherwise, the life records will be distorted. That will deprive the dead from 1. Reaping fully what he or she has sown in life, and 2. Strengthening the conscience and virtue of the spirit in its next physical embodiment. After the records have been transferred into the spiritual body, the silver cord snaps and the person becomes biologically dead. The desired body then assumes the form of the dead person after death and can manifest as a ghost. Cremation plays a key role in detaching the dead from residual magnetism and to be free from all earthly connections. The dead are still around their homes immediately after death and remain there for a very long time after the funeral. Although dead, they are still active in the lives of their loved ones who may not know it. There are laws in the land of the dead that those who pass on will have to follow, and they will have to learn those laws as well. Those who die by unnatural means, like murder and killing of oneself, they will have to wait in the land of the dead until their archetypes collapse before they can become fully functional in the land of the living dead. Thoughts are things in the spiritual realm. The spirit dropping the physical body does not mean that it has dropped all the other bodies. No. The spirit uses the mind and the desired body in the desired world and the world of thought. It is still active and sees, moves, feels, desires, and thinks. The only change is that it can no longer take a physical body and function in the physical world. Let us remember this. Your title, your position, or status in life is meaningless after death. What matters is the amount of good works, conscience, and virtue that you have. And above all, knowing that there is God. Let us now begin with the main lecture for today. We begin by answering the question, how should the dead body be preserved in the 3.5 days immediately after death? Keep the corpse in a room in a solitary environment, devoid of any noise or disturbance. Put it on an appropriate platform, covered with ice blocks. A bathtub, if available, is not bad. The ice blocks should be replaced as their effectiveness reduces. But once the 3.5 days elapse, the body can now be taken to the morgue. There are dangers in taking the body immediately after death to the morgue. And these are the dangers. 1. Mortuary attendants may mishandle it. 2. Embalming may take place whereby the residual blood in the body will be drawn from the veins and medicine injected into the body. That is so painful. It is so painful to the dead because the body is partially dead. It is only partially dead. And the third danger is that medical examination may be done to determine the cause of death. The corpse is consequently dissected. This is another painful moment for the dead. There are stories about some of them even moving their limbs to hit the surgeon or attendant in protest. Yes, some of them do so because they were only partially dead. Under the circumstance, the dead feels the pain and agony of torture. The sad case is that when they yell, the living, being spiritually dead, does not hear them. But when post-mortem examination is done after the 3.5 days, when the silver cord snaps, the dead feels no pain. That is why it is important to do these things only after 3.5 days. What happens at the funeral? As said before, many dead people do not know that they are dead, which is understandable because they can still see, hear, speak, move, feel, and think. But with time, they begin to realize that something is not right, since they are no more able to do the things they used to do. They are often present at their own funerals. The dead are often present at their own funerals because of the tie between the residual magnetism of the corpse and the spiritual bodies. There is a connection between them. So the dead is always present at his or her own funeral. At the funeral, the dead sees a motionless body, laid in state. It resembles him or her. And then he or she wonders, why the cry? Why the grief? Why the wailing? If someone who is capable of telling the dead, it is your funeral, we are holding your funeral, the dead will thought it madness. How could you be talking to me and claim I am dead? That is what will be going through the mind of the dead. If I were dead, how could you have been talking to me? Unless dead people are taught to understand that they are no more in the physical body, it is difficult for them to appreciate the fact that they are dead. They are no more in the physical world. They normally will sit or stand a bit far from the place where they are laid in state, preferably in a corner. When sitting in a chair, they easily give way to people, especially those with whom they are familiar. The dead is interested in the ceremony, and when the preacherman's sermon becomes appealing, his or her name being frequently mentioned, plus the good works done on earth, the dead will once a while go, stand over the mortal remains, watching it with keen interest. He or she is overjoyed when the good things done in life are mentioned. That is why we should be saying positive things about people who are dead. The oftener we repeat this, the happier they feel. Inversely, the dead dislikes negative things being said about them. They don't like it at all. Let's just talk about colors at funerals. The vibration of certain colors during funerals is not conducive for the dead. Examples: black color, red color, brown color, by way of the dresses and decorations, much more when they are deep colors. They are not conducive at all. White color is most appealing. Why? The atoms attract and they are conducive to the vibration of the dead. When a black cloth or black attire is worn, there should be a little bit of white in it. That is fine to do so. The dead do not see physical materials as we do, but perceive them by the composition of their atoms. That is how the dead perceive. Grief, crying, wailing, and lamentations dampen the cheerfulness of the dead, and as much as possible, these things should not characterize any funeral. Respect should be shown because that is about the last occasion to bid the dead Godspeed. Repeat at the funeral that the dead person has no more role to play in the physical world, but should adjust or find his or her balance in the spiritual world, and the name of the dead person should be mentioned frequently with that reminder. Of course, those who have spiritual eyes, they can see the two lower ethers we always talk about, the two lower ethers of the vital body shimmering or hovering over the coffin. That is for those who have the spiritual eye. They can see that. How about the burial? The dead person follows the coffin, the crowd as well, from the funeral ground to the cemetery or crematorium, where dust returns to dust and ash returns to ash. Still, the dead will try to participate in activities of interest, just as when he or she was alive. If it is a conversation about a matter of interest, the dead will be there, making contribution, but the living sees not or hears not. Have you seen that nobody is actually paying attention to him or her in terms of the contribution that the dead is making? He or she moves on to the next activity of interest. Let nobody think that once a person dies, that is the end of it all. No. If it is a reception after the burial, the dead will try to partake in the eating, drinking, and dancing, but cannot do so successfully because there is no physical body. For several days, to weeks, months, to years, the dead is still around his or her normal places of activities, still interested in what goes on. They live among us for a long time. Their vibration is stronger because they are now using the desired body. If the dead was an evil person, he or she remains as such and may try to influence people of similar character by suggestion because the dead still uses the mind. That is why the living should be of good character to promote good in the world and even after death. So when you are a bad guy and you die, that doesn't transform you into a saint. You are still a bad guy and you'll be doing the bad things from there to the extent of influencing the living by way of suggestion. Let us not talk about purgatory. As we ever said in lecture number 3, the desire world interpenetrates the etheric region and the chemical region of the physical world. You may refer to lecture number 3, where we talk about the various worlds and how human beings are linked. It means that the dead, now using the desired body, has capabilities that include vibration that are higher than the etheric atoms and the physical atoms that we have on this physical plane. The intensity of their feelings, emotions, thought, and action are more than ours, faster than we experience in the physical world. With time, the dead transits the etheric region of the physical world into the desire world. Generally, the first area that dead people enter is the lower part of the desire world, where the force of repulsion predominates. It is not a vandalistic force, but its workings are thorough in order to cleanse the dead from the dross it carried. As much as there is a lot of low desires in a dead person, the more shall be the work of the force of repulsion. This force tears away any coarse desires of passion, sensuality, materiality, and so on. The low desires are of our own making, while we were alive on earth. And they include coarse desires of materiality, greed, selfishness, lying, hatred, jealousy, stealing, deception, insincerity, injustice, fraud, bearing false witness, arrogance, fornication, cheating, drunkenness. A lot of them, these are low desires that we cultivated whilst we were alive. In purgatory, the records which have been transferred into the seed atom of the desire body will be played to the dead, who now have feelings. In the desire world, the dead now have feelings, and those records will be played, and the feelings will be attached, unlike in the etheric region, when the records were initially being transferred into the desire body, where no feelings were attached. We are told in this life to lead the godly life, the clean and holy life, to love one another, and to offer selfless service. Those are the higher qualities. So long as we do not have the higher qualities, the low qualities in us will have to be purged. By the exercise of free will, we made our choices on earth, good or bad, our own making. Meanwhile, the desire world, where the dead go, that world is not structured like the physical world. It is structured by God such that both good and bad can never be on the same plane, unlike the physical world. There is a separation in that world. The bad comes first. It means the bad must be cleansed in the dead. So, the reaper reaps first the evil of his or her past life on earth. As the Bible says, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." And we are also told in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, "And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment." So long as the records of evil deeds are in the seed atom of the dead, those evil records will have to be purged. And the force of repulsion is not to punish anybody, but to build conscience into the spirit, depending on the realization of the dead that it has led inappropriate life on earth. Generally, the life spent in purgatory is a third of the years lived on earth. So, if a person lived physically for 60 years, roughly 20 years will be spent in purgatory. Purgatory is actually the lower region of the desire world, and in popular Christianity, it is called hell. It is not the place of fire, as we know physical fire. No, purgatory is not like that. But it's a place where low desires are cleansed from the desire body of the dead person before he or she can proceed to the higher worlds. Until those low desires are purged, the dead can never proceed to the higher worlds. And the following diagrams gives a description. You can see the red colors. This is the lower region of the desire world, where purgatory predominates. Tearing away the low desires is even more painful than the pain we suffer physically. Because over there in purgatory, the dead no longer has a dense body to dull the pain. No. So the pain over there is not a joke. And it is that pain that is tearing away the low desires. The desire world is not far away in space, but right here with us, closer than hands and feet. It interpenetrates the physical world and extends far beyond the physical world. How do things play out in purgatory? We are not going to talk about it, the details of what happens in purgatory. The purpose of purgatory is not to punish, God takes no delight in punishing anybody and does not even punish. It is the natural laws that work. Purgatory is to strengthen conscience in the spirit, for it to shun evil and aspire to the good as the Father in heaven. So, after the etheric region, the dead, having the mind and the desire body containing the two higher ethers of the vital body, enters purgatory. Purgatory is actually dominated by the passion and coarse desires of animals, human beings, and demons. So you can imagine what is there. Very, very rough and bad things based on our own desires. In that region of sensuality, all manner of debased feelings and activities dominate. Things of despicable materiality, which the dead is interested in and attached to, not only in this earth life, but even after death. Because death does not take away your feelings, your desires. They are still there. Mind you, death does not transform the sensual and materialistic person into a saint. It rather increases appetite to be and do more of those debased things. Purgatory, by the force of repulsion, works primarily in two ways. We are saying that purgatory works in two ways. One, it deprives the dead from satisfying nefarious activities, desires, feelings, and emotions. The dead can never satisfy them. Two, it transfers to the dead the pain caused others on earth, the misdeeds by commission or omission. Once they have been done on earth, this time the pain must be felt by the dead. Those are the two ways purgatory works. If the dying could leave all desires behind, the desire body will very quickly fall away, leaving him or her free to proceed into the heaven world. But generally, that is not the case. The dead still clings on to the desires, the low desires. Most people, especially if they die young, have many ties and much interest in things of this world. The young ones, they haven't altered their desires just because they do not have physical bodies. Still after death, the young ones continue with their desires, especially the low ones. Often their desires are augmented by a very intense longing to return to what they used to do on earth. These acts bind them to the desire world in a very unpleasant way, although unfortunately they do not even realize it. On the other hand, old and decrepit persons and those who are very weak as a result of illness and they are simply tired of life, they pass on very quickly because they leave their desires quickly, the low desires, they leave them quickly. So it is especially hard for people who were taken out of their bodies by accident. Much more when they are in their youthful ages, where they are so much attached to the physical things of this world. Young and energetic people engage in numerous activities of life. Wife, family, relatives, friends, persons of business, and so on. They are so attached, so they find it so difficult adjusting after death. Those who die in accidents, they are unable to review their life activities, and they will have to be reborn and die as children before the records can be transferred into their desired bodies. They frequent the accident scene. Those who die by accident, they frequent the accident scene, and some strange sounds could be heard sometimes, especially at night. Those accident areas, they need to be cleansed because there is lingering scent of blood and ethers which inimical entities patronage. They like it, so they continue to bask in those sins, and that area will have to be cleansed. If not cleansed, it will be an area that is accident prone. As long as the dead entertains low desires, so long as the dead still has within him or her low desires that are linked to this earth life, the dead must stay in the desired body and suffer in purgatory. Meanwhile, God so designed the world such that for progress to be made, the dead will have to drop the lower desires before that progress can be made. But the dead must be cleansed of all low desires. Those low desires are dross matter on the spiritual body. They do not increase the vibration that are required to be able to move to the higher worlds. That is why existence in the lower desire world must definitely be purgative to purify the dead from the binding low desires. How does the situation of the miser look like in purgatory? The miser who loves gold or money in earth life loves it just as dearly as after death. But in the first place, he or she cannot acquire any more of those gold or cash, because there is no dense body to grasp money or gold. And worst of all, the person cannot even keep what he or she has already acquired on earth. The dead will perhaps go and sit by the safe and watch the cherished gold or cash. People may appear, relatives may appear, who see or hear nothing, not even the protest of the dead, and they will open the safe and take what they like. Although the dead person may throw himself or herself over the gold or cash to protect it, they will put their hands through him or her, neither knowing nor caring that the dead is there, and they will proceed to spend their booty, the money, the gold that they have taken, while the miser suffers in sorrow and in impotent rage. The dead will suffer keenly, the suffering being more terrible on account of it being entirely mental. The dead no longer has the vital body nor the dense body in the desire world. So, suffering has full sway, and the dead person suffers until he or she learns that gold or cash may be a curse. At last, the dead gradually gives up and becomes free of the low desires and ready to move on. Until the dead drops the low desires, he or she can never move on. How about the materialistic person? What happens to that person in purgatory? The materialistic person is not any different from the miser. He or she loves the lands and buildings, the food, the drinks, luxury cars and buildings as before. He or she will visit those places, including the office, but can no longer hold a pen to sign any check. The secretary will no longer hear his or her instructions. The dead will be in the chair at meetings and give directives, but nobody will hear him or her. The dead will be at the banquet, but has no hands to hold the cutlery and eat the rich food, nor eat the cake, nor quaff the quality drink. The dead can never do that. He or she will crave for a dance, but had no physical hands to hold a partner for a dance. The sports cars can no longer be driven. There are no physical fingers to turn the knob and ignite the engine. The luxury yachts and boats, they are all there, but the dead cannot enjoy them as before. If he was the authoritarian type, he will be in the house giving orders to almost everybody, and will go into a rage as to why his commands were not being obeyed. In a fit, he might try to slap somebody, only to see that his hands went through the person. He will listen to the conversation, interject, and try to make his point so strongly as to compel listeners to give in. He will be in a wild temper as to why they continue to disregard his point, not knowing that all along nobody was seeing him nor hearing his voice. In anger, he will leave thinking that he was being disrespected. He will keep harboring pain, just as his attitude was in life. How about the jealous lover? How will purgatory handle the jealous lover? Death does not change the person who was so jealous of his partner or her partner in life, who felt he or she owned the partner, will go at any length to express ownership rather than accepting that the partner also has free will to love back or not. After death, he or she sticks around, close to the partner, trying to dominate as usual, yet is neither seen nor heard by the partner. The dead is like air without any physical body for any action. This is a source of extreme anger and disappointment to the dead. Let us take note. Because the spiritual body is more dense immediately after death, couples should be careful with such a jealous partner, spouse, or lover. The dead person can easily materialize because of the strong desire and can cause harm. As such, the living partner should stay away from any relationship for months into years and keep reminding the dead partner by mentioning the name frequently that he or she is no longer in the physical world and needs to adjust in the spiritual realm. Someone who was so attached to the partner, not the jealous type, also needs to be reminded, since he or she also behaves like a jealous partner in a similar fashion. There are instances where the dead came for their partners to join them in the spiritual realm. There are so many instances of that. The stories abound. In African tradition and culture, there are rites to keep away the dead from the partner or any other loved ones. The true Christian also has spiritual ways to do so. Cremation, however, cuts all these earthly after-death activities of the dead. That is why cremation serves a very useful purpose. It is only when the dead realizes and admits the vanity of the low desires to which he or she was attached during life can he or she proceed to the higher worlds, commencing with the first heaven. So until the dead was thoroughly purged of the low desires, the dead can never proceed to the first heaven. What is the situation of the drunkard in purgatory? Such a person craves for intoxicants after death, as was the case in physical life. While alive, it is not the dense body that hungers after the drink. Actually, the dense body is made sick by alcohol and would rather be without it. But the desire body of the drunkard craves for the drink and forces the dense body to take it, so that the desire body may have the sensation of pleasure resulting from the increased vibration. That desire remains even after death of this dense body. But the drunkard has in his or her desire body neither mouth to drink nor stomach to contain physical liquor. It's not there. So he or she may and often goes into drinking spots to interpolate his or her desire body into the bodies of the drinkers over there to get a little of their vibrations by induction. But that is too weak to give much satisfaction to the drunkard. He or she may sometimes get inside a whiskey cask, a container of whiskey. But that is to no avail, for there are no fumes as are generated in the digestive organs. It has no effect upon the dead. The dead drunkard is like a man in an open boat on the ocean. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Consequently, the drunkard suffers intensely. In time, the dead drunkard learns the uselessness of longing for a drink which cannot be obtained. As with so many of our desires on earth, all low desires in the desire world die for want of opportunity to gratify or to satisfy them in purgatory. When the drunkard has been purged, he or she is now ready, so far as this habit is concerned, to leave this state of purgatory and ascend into the heaven world. So we see that it is not an avenging God that makes purgatory or hell for us, but our own individual evil habits and acts. They constitute our hell, which we will have to be purged of when we get to purgatory. How about the sex maniac and the drug addict? What happens to them in purgatory? The desire of the sex maniac for sex is even stronger after death than it was during lifetime. He or she has extreme hunger for it and will often visit the partner, but the act cannot take place because there are no genital organs for it. In certain cases, the dead person will try to interpolate himself or herself into living couples who are in the act to have some sensation and increased vibration, but that is only temporary, and the level of vibration is weak. He or she is left unsatisfied and suffers a great deal. Invariably, such maniacs try to associate with the living sex maniac and impel the person by suggestion to continue having sex, either in solitary or with a partner, so that they can tap some sensation from the act. In such a manner, so many living people are influenced to use their free will wrongly and destroy themselves in this life, and will have to suffer the consequences of their bad habits after death. The drug addict. The situation of the drug addict after death is not any different from the sex maniac or alcoholic. There is intense desire for drugs, yet there are no hands to roll the roll and to sniff the stuff. There is no nostril nor mouth to take in anything. Much more, a digestive system is not there. A digestive system whereby the sensation or vibration can increase, it is not there. The drug addict can go to all the drug houses, see all the drugs of this world, but can never take in anything, can never lift a roll. He or she cannot take in any drug. In pain and anger, the dead will interpolate into the body of another drug addict to have some sensation and increase vibration, but it is only temporary. And the lack of the level of vibration that the dead drug addict needed wasn't there. So he or she will never be satisfied. The option left for the drug addict is to find a victim and by suggestion wreck the life of that victim to make him or her keep taking drugs so that the dead drug addict can keep having some sensations. Yet, the induced vibration remains unsatisfactory. Eventually, the dead drug addict gives up, having learned the lesson that it is vanity to live by drugs in this earth life. How long is purgatory? How long do we stay there? According to the intensity of desires will be the time and suffering entailed in their expurgation. There is no predetermined time for anybody. It depends on the individual. So the earlier you leave your low desires, the faster you move on. In the examples given, it will be no suffering to the drunkard to lose worldly possessions, unlike the miser or the materialistic person. If the drunkard had any property at all, he or she did not cling to them, but cared for the drink. Neither would it have caused the miser or the materialistic person any pain to have been deprived of intoxicants. It is safe to say that the miser would not have cared if there were not even a drop of liquor in this world. But he or she did care about the properties, and the drunkard cared about the drink. And so the unerring law, the law that never goes wrong, gives to each that which was needed to purge him or her of unholy desires and evil habits. This is the law that is symbolized in the skeleton, scythe of the reaper and the hourglass. And we talked about that in our earlier presentation. It is the law of cause and effect which rules all things in the three worlds, in every realm of nature, physical, moral, and mental. That law works. Everywhere it works inevitably, adjusting all things, restoring the equilibrium, wherever even the slightest action has been brought about by a disturbance. The law of cause and effect works. The result of every action may be manifested immediately, or it may be delayed for years or for lives, but sometime, somewhere, just and equal retribution will be made. The law of cause and effects works absolutely impersonally. He doesn't care about who you are. All is a result of the invariable laws of nature. That is how God made it. How about hurting or mistreating others in this life? How is that purged in purgatory? Having talked about how purgatory cleanses the dead person of low and debased desires, let us now look at how bad habits, bad actions, by commission or by omission, are purged in purgatory. In the desire world, the life pictures or the records are played backwards as before. But now, the dead person has all the feelings that is possible for him or her to have. One by one, life events and sights pass before him or her. Every incident in the past life is now lived all over. When the dead comes to a point where he or she has caused pain and grief to someone, the dead person now feels the pain as the person felt it in life. The effect of the lies, the corruption, the cheating, the robbery, the hatred, the jealousy, the wickedness, the harm, the enslavement, the killing, just name them. They are all felt by the dead person, no more the victim, but it is felt by the one who committed the act in life. The dead person lives through all the sorrow and suffering caused others on earth and learns just how painful is the hurt and how hard to bear is the sorrow caused somebody. The pain is felt as much as 3 times the effect of the victim in this life. As already mentioned, the suffering is much stronger because the dead person no longer has a dense body to dull the pain. So if you are hurting somebody in this life and you are happy about it, remember that after death, the pain you have caused your fellow, you are now going to face that pain 3 times stronger. It's not a good thing. It's not a pleasant thing. So we need to be retuning our minds and changing our actions so that we laugh some more. The pain and suffering do not come continuously. And this is the other aspect of it, that the pain and suffering in purgatory, they do not come continuously, such as to condition the dead, but they are broken at intervals, such that at each point, the dead will bear the full effect more than the previous one. God is wonderful. All this is so arranged to build into us conscience. The reason is not to punish, but to strengthen conscience in the spirit, so that it will desist from wrongs in future earth life. This is why the panorama, we talk about it, the review of past life records is most important. If the dead is disturbed in the 3.5 days after death, the records are not etched into the seed atom of the desired body for purgative existence. Conscience will therefore not be strengthened. There will be no accurate records for the dead to feel remorse for wrongdoing. That is why those records are very, very important to be taken along by the dead. But if the panorama lasted long and the dead was not disturbed, a full, deep, clear impressions will be etched into the desired body, which will make life in the desired world more vivid and conscious, and the purgation more thorough. That is why the records are very important. This is how conscience is strengthened, the ultimate goal and beneficial effect of purgatory in the journey of humanity through matter to perfection, that is back to God. Indeed, God does not punish, rather, all things work for good. This sharp, clear-cut feeling of pain is of immense value in future lives for the spirit. It stands upon the seed atom of the desired body an indelible impression of itself. The experiences will be forgotten in succeeding lives, but the feelings remains. When the opportunities occur to repeat the mistake in next lives, This feeling will speak to us clearly without mistake. And people experience this. It is a still, small voice which warns us, though we do not know why. But the clearer and more definite the panorama of the past life has been, the oftener, the stronger, and clearer shall we hear this voice. And people call it intuition. It speaks to us every time. It's something we have developed over the years. It is part of the spirit. It has developed that. So when you are going to do something, it tells this one, I did not do it. The intuition is speaking to you. But we all have free will to obey or to disregard and suffer the consequences accordingly. The more we disobey, the harsher the experiences that come until finally we admit, as said in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 15. Good understanding giveth favor, but the way of transgressors is hard. It is only when the dead realizes and admits the vanity of the desires to which he or she was attached during earth life can he or she proceed to the higher worlds, commencing with the first heaven. And Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 1 and 2 says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What is the mission of purgatory? The mission of purgatory is to eradicate the injurious habits by making their gratification impossible. That is one. The second one is the individual suffers exactly as he or she has made others suffer through dishonesty, cruelty, intolerance, and so on. Because of this suffering, which the dead learns, he or she begins to know about being kind, being honest, and with some forbearance when the spirit comes back into future embodiment. Can we live purgatory as we are alive now? Can we? While alive, we can live our purgatory by the exercise of retrospection so that we do not go through it after death. And we talk about this in lecture number 16, the spiritual exercises of retrospection and concentration. You may refer to it for the details, yet we'll say a few things about it. Retrospection consists of thinking over the happenings of the day after retiring to bed at night. We review each incident of the day in reverse order, taking particular note of the moral aspect, considering whether we acted rightly or wrongly in each particular case regarding our actions, our mental attitude, and our habits. Did we act aright? So, by judging ourselves day by day and endeavoring to correct our mistakes and wrong actions, we shall materially shorten or perhaps even eliminate the necessity for purgatory and be able to pass to the first heaven directly after death. So it is possible for us to avoid purgatory as we are alive now by doing retrospection, where we correct ourselves. In this manner, we consciously overcome our weaknesses and move faster in the school of evolution. Even if we fail to correct our actions, we derive an immense benefit from judging ourselves, thereby generating aspirations towards good, which in time will surely bear fruit in right action. Repentance and reform, they are also powerful factors in shortening the purgatorial existence, for nature never wastes effort in useless processes. It is never the delight of nature to be vengeful, but we must work on ourselves. Repentance and reform, they are powerful tools. When we realize the wrong of certain habits or actions in our lives, and we are determined to eradicate the habit and to redress the wrong committed, we are expunging the pictures of them from the subconscious memory, and they will not be there to judge us after death. Even though we are not able to make retribution for a wrong that we committed against the other, the sincerity of our regret will suffice. Nature does not aim at getting even or to take revenge. That has never been. Recompense may be given to our victim in other ways. Much progress will be made by humanity, and conditions ordinarily reserved for future lives are attainable now by the individual who strives, judging himself or herself and eradicating vice by reforming his or her character. Spiritual development is pillared on character, not just chanting, speaking in tongues, showboating prayers and fasting, display of magical powers, signs and wonders. They are not the essence of spiritual development. Character shows your level of spirituality. Someone will say, after hearing all these things, that they are not true. No one has been there and back, so they cannot be true. But that is a simplistic view. The authority by which the Western wisdom teachings has been established speaks to the truth that great teachers of humanity have gone through these spiritual worlds consciously and saw these things themselves, and they have brought them down for us to learn from. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 2 says, and this is St. Paul, I know a man in Christ who 40 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. Paul said this, which means he saw these things himself. Once again, let us go to some Bible quotations in support of what we have said so far. In any case, remember the rich man and Lazarus, as told by our Lord Christ Jesus. You may refer to the Bible quotation in Luke chapter 16, verse 19 to 31. These things are true. As written in Matthew chapter 11, verse 15, whoever has ears, let them hear. Let us talk about the borderland. Purgatory occupies the three lower regions of the desire world. The first heaven is in the three upper regions. The central region is a sort of borderland, neither heaven nor purgatory. And we show this by the following diagram. You can see purgatory in the red color. And then you can see the first heaven, which is to the top, in the green color. Between both, you have feeling the gray color, and that is the borderland. It is neither heaven nor purgatory. Who are the people who go there? We're going to talk about them. In the borderland, there are people who were honest and upright in life. They wronged nobody, but were deeply immersed in business or other activities. And they thought nothing at all about the higher life. It never meant anything to them. You remember in our first lecture, we talked about the ignorant person, the ordinary person, the moralist, the humanist, the atheist, the philanthropist, and the material scientist. Yes, we did. You may refer to lecture number 1, which is about the purpose of life, for the details. For such people, the desire world is a place of excruciating monotony. There is no business, nor is there anything that will take its place. The dead will have a very hard time until he or she learns to think of higher things. Things higher than cash, checks, ledgers, and business. Those in this life who thought that death ends it all, who deny the existence of things outside the material sense world, they equally feel this dreadful monotony. They had expected annihilation of conscience or consciousness, but find themselves with an augmented perception of other people and things about them. They had been accustomed to denying these things vehemently whilst they were alive. They deceived themselves into thinking that the desire world is imaginary and that they are hallucinating. Yet the monotony persists, and it is dreadful. Frequently, they are heard exclaiming in the deepest despair, when will it end? When will it end? Because the suffering is too much. Such people are really in a pitiable state. You have to feel pity for them. They are generally beyond the reach of any help, whatever, and they suffer more longer than almost anyone else. That is the danger of those who don't believe, those who refuse that there is life beyond the physical. They get there and still in their doubting stage, doubt even what they are suffering from. But eventually, they have no option but to admit. Besides, they have scarcely any life in the heavenly world. That is another serious danger, where the building of bodies for future embodiment takes place. That is where the spirit is taught how to build its body. But because they doubt things, even there, they are not able to do anything. So they put all their crystallizing thoughts into whatever body they build for the future life. And as such, a body is built in many cases that has the wrong tendencies. Such skeptics face the greatest danger of losing touch in the scheme of evolution and becoming outcasts. All because they use their free will to deny themselves the natural path to become perfect, to be like God. Through suffering, they fall in line at last. So they suffer more, and eventually they fall in line. Sometimes the suffering will turn their thoughts to God, and only then can they proceed to the higher worlds. So the dead, having been sufficiently purged of all wrong desires and suffering from the pain caused others, builds into itself conscience. The whole thing is about conscience and virtue. It is now ready to proceed to the first heaven, where records of the good things done on earth will be played for it to enjoy bliss and strengthen virtue. The dead proceeds to the higher part of the desire world. How the dead enjoys bliss in the first heaven is dependent on the amount of good work done on earth. So, if little good works were done here on this earth, little enjoyment will be realized over there. It is therefore not automatic that everybody will go to first heaven after death. Importantly, your good work, my good work, determines whether we qualify to be in first heaven and for how long. Let us summarize what we have talked about so far. Within the 3.5 days after death, the corpse should be kept in a room, in the house, in a solitary environment, devoid of any noise or disturbance. Ice blocks can be used to preserve the body, and after 3.5 days, the body can be sent to the morgue. There are dangers to the dead if the body is taken immediately after death to the morgue or buried. The dead are often present at their own funerals because of the tie between the residual magnetism of the corpse and the spiritual bodies. The vibration of certain colors during funerals are not conducive for the dead. Colors such as black, red, brown, much more when they are deep colors. The dead don't like it at all. White color is most appealing as the atoms attract and connect with the vibration of the dead. Grief, crying, wailing, and lamentations, they dampen the cheerfulness of the dead and as much as possible should not characterize the funeral. Respect ought to be shown because that is about the last occasion to bid the dead Godspeed. It should be repeated at the funeral while mentioning the name of the dead that he or she has no more role to play in the physical world, but should adjust or find his or her balance in the spiritual world. All along, the dead will try to participate in activities of interest as when he or she was alive. Generally, the first place dead people enter in the spiritual world is the lower region of the desire world, where the force of repulsion predominates. Over there, the records which have been transferred into the seed atom of the desire body will be played to the dead, who now has feelings. The desire world is structured by God such that both good and bad are not on the same plane. There is a separation. The bad is cleansed first. So the sower reaps at last the good of his or her past life on earth. The force of repulsion is not to punish anybody, but to build conscience into the spirit. To suffer until the realization that inappropriate life was led on earth. Purgatory is actually the lowest region of the desire world, which is dominated by the passion and coarse desires of animals, human beings, and demons. The purpose of purgatory is not to punish anybody, but to strengthen conscience in the spirit for it to shun evil and aspire to be good as the Father in heaven. Purgatory occupies the three lower regions of the desire world. It works through the force of repulsion in two ways. One, to deprive the dead from satisfying nefarious activities, desires, feelings, and emotions. And two, for the dead to feel the pain it caused others by commission or omission during earth life. As long as the dead entertains low desires linked to earth life, he or she must stay in the desired body and suffer in purgatory. There is no fixed time about how long a person will stay in purgatory. It depends on the individual, how early he or she can drop the evil desires. After purgatory, the experiences will be forgotten in succeeding lives when the spirit comes back to embodiment on earth. But the feeling remains. It is only when the dead realizes and admits the vanity of desires, of low desires, to which he or she was attached during earth life, can he or she proceed to the higher worlds, commencing with the first heaven. While alive, we can live our purgatory by the exercise of retrospection so that we do not go through it after death. Repentance and reform are also powerful factors in shortening the purgatorial existence. Even though we are not able to make restitution for a wrong that we have done against another person, the sincerity of our regret will suffice. Much progress will be made by humanity, and conditions ordinarily reserved for future lives are attainable now by the individual who strives, judging himself or herself, and eradicating vice by reforming his or her character. The cornerstone of spiritual development is character, not just chanting, speaking in tongues, showboating prayers and fasting, display of magical powers, signs and wonders, and what have you. Character shows your level of spirituality. We talk about the borderland. Is the central region of the desire world. It's a sort of borderland, neither heaven nor purgatory. That place is for people who were honest and upright in life, who wronged no one, but deeply immersed in business and other things, and they thought nothing of the higher life. For such people, the desire world is a place of excruciating monotony. There is no business, nor is there anything that will take its place. They deceive themselves into thinking that the desire world is imaginary and that they are hallucinating. Such people are really in pitiable state. They attract pity. They are generally beyond the reach of any help, and they suffer much longer than almost anyone else because they deny the existence of worlds beyond the physical. So when they get there, they are still holding on to their singular belief, which is wrong. Such skeptics face the greatest danger of losing touch in the scheme of evolution and becoming outcasts. So the dead, having been sufficiently purged of all wrong desires and suffering from the pain caused others, builds into itself conscience. It is now ready to proceed to the first heaven, where records of the good things done on earth will be played for it to enjoy bliss and strengthen virtue. How the dead enjoy bliss in the first heaven is dependent on the amount of good work done on earth. So, if little good works were done here, little enjoyment will be realized over there. It is therefore not automatic that everybody will go to first heaven after death. Your good works, my good works, determine it. We hope you have learned something new in this episode. If you have any suggestions or questions, do not hesitate to post them into our comments section. Let us meet again for the part 4 of this episode, where we'll be talking about the journey of the dead through the first the second, and the third heavens. Thank you very much.
Filling up every space, no privacy. And silently, it could build and build until you finally see. Whoa, it's taking over, damn no closure, moving closer. No exposure, I just wanna be a loner. Some can't stay sober, looking over all this.